Good evening, everybody. President, Vice President, and all ARFRO members, all senior officers, past commanders, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me a great satisfaction and accomplishment to introduce our speaker today, who happened to be my subordinate officer on board the fast attack craft Papa 453 I commanded in 1991. Thereafter, in many levels in my career progression, our speaker today was under my purview, working with him an absolute pleasure and pleasing affair. Ladies and gentlemen, Rear Admiral Y.N. Jayaratne, I normally call him Y.N., retired from the Sri Lanka Navy in 2022 on reaching mandatory retirement age of 55 after an illustrious, battle-decorated and unblemished career span of over 35 years. At the time of his retirement, he was the Chief of Staff and the Chief Hydrographer of the Navy, concurrently holding the appointment of the Joint Chief Hydrographer to the government. He joined the Navy in 1986, immediately after his A-level schooling, and was adjudged the best cadet of the 15th intake of officer cadets. He was trained at Britannia Royal Naval College, Dartmouth, UK, under Commonwealth Defence funded scholarship in 1988-89. He was trained in India, Israel, China and UK during his career and was the flotilla command of the 4th Fast Attack Craft Flotilla in 2007 and 2008. He also was the defence advisor at the Sri Lanka High Commission in India in 2009-2011. He did his staff course at Butland Army Staff College in 2001 and his National Defence course in Beijing, China in 2016-17. He also was the Naval Assistant to the 18th Commander of the Navy, Vice Admiral Jainath Kolambage. Our speaker today was a member of the expert committee appointed for the delineation of the outer continental margin of Sri Lanka and has represented the Navy and the government several forums, from Colombo Security Conclave to Joint Working Group on Fishery. As the Chief Hydrographer, he chaired the North Indian Ocean Hydrographic Commission consisting of 12 member states. He holds 2 master degrees from University of Kelaniya for Defence Studies and University of Goa, India for Hydrographic Surveys. He is an International Hydrographic Organization's Category A qualified hydrographer with vast knowledge and experience on oceanic and maritime matters. He has authored several articles for publications on topics covering geopolitics to marine science research and is a regular visiting lecturer for the think tanks, Staff College and National Defence College. On retirement, his expertise was secured by the United Nations and is an international consultant to the UNODC on underseas cables and maritime intelligence. He speaks widely on contemporary geostrategic maritime issues and the oceans and regularly writes to printed media and think tanks on matters maritime. Please follow his profile on LinkedIn for his presentation, writings and newsletters. I am sure we will immensely benefited by his offer to share his knowledge base with us, and let's engage in a fruitful and timely interactive sessions with him. He is known to us as YN And let me invite YN to the stage to take the forum, please.
Honorable President, Vice President, members of the committee, and former Commander of the Navy and Chief of Defence Staff. It is almost all of our seniors and mentors to me at one point of time in my career. So I must acknowledge and the presence of them on this gathering. The very reason why I wanted and I requested from the President to give me this opportunity was that I saw that most of the membership of Association for Retired Flag Rank Officers being made as consultant, or their opinion is being sought by political leaders, community leaders, corporate world on matters maritime. And I thought it is very befitting under the circumstances to keep everybody in the kind of a picture of what is happening. And while the primary aim is for the membership to be aware and understand the matters maritime, the secondary purpose is for the next generation of military leadership. As the next generation of military leadership, it is very important that you gather that knowledge, understanding, and build up this 360-degree bird-eye view. Because this is an island nation, and this island nation need the understanding of matters maritime, whether you are in the profession of Army or Air Force, it matters. Even for the Navy, it matters. So I am thankful to the President and the Executive Committee for this opportunity given. And I wish to take you through a process of facts, figures, and sources. It is not my opinion that I am going to drive. I am going to show you facts, figures, and sources. So when you go through these things, you will see how much of information is already available for you to make decisions based on facts and figures. And based on that, I am sure you are mature enough, you are experienced enough to give your opinion to a third party when they seek your advice, your opinion. So with this introduction, let me take you through the process. As maritime, and we, as islanders, are at the center of any maritime matter in the Indian Ocean. This photograph taken by the Russian satellite Electro-L in 2012. I selected this image because it represents the whole gimmick or all aspects of all spectrum of activities, where we are and why we are relevant. All geostrategic, geopolitical, geoeconomic, all things are centered on the ocean. And in the oceanic affairs, we are at a place where it matters to all. It doesn't matter what your size or what your economy is. Take example of Yemen. Take example of Somalia, to some 12 years back. So that is why we need to be very much aware of what is our strengths and what is our weaknesses and what are our opportunities. So let's have a quick glimpse on correlation of our maritime interest and jurisdiction. So we have an exclusive economic zone, Ananya Arthika Kalapaya, that is given to us by International Convention, UNCLOS, United Nations Convention on Law of the Sea, that gives right for coastal state to go for 200 nautical miles from the baseline. So we have an EZ, then we have a search and rescue region that has been bestowed to us by another international convention, Safety of Life at Sea, 1974. Now that has demarcated the oceans, and they have portioned out the oceans and given responsibility to the coastal state to respond in the case of search and rescue and the distresses. So why our search and rescue region is important is because of the sea lane of communication. So we have the continental margin. On 2009 April, we made our claim. So what is different from EEZ and the continental margin is that in the EEZ, exclusive economic zone, you own the water column and you own the seabed, both. All living and non-living resources in the water column and on the seabed, the sovereign rights are with us. But in the continental margin, it is only the seabed. We don't own or we don't have any rights for the water column. So this is the differentiate between the EZ and the continental margin. Now this is what we have claimed as per the technical guidelines that are given. So obviously, in the northern part of the Bay of Bengal, especially this part, we will have to negotiate with India, Bangladesh, Myanmar to come into some bilateral agreement on how to demarcate the boundaries. Otherwise, this is the complete technical claim we can make. Because under the UNCLOS, United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, this provision is given as a complete technical procedure. It doesn't look at the legal procedures or it doesn't look at the diplomatic procedures. It's simply a technical process. So this is the maximum we can claim under that provisions. So what's more important here is the sea lane of communication that connect the far east and the far west. So this goes through our search and rescue region, and that makes us very responsible for the world community to respond to a distress calls and extend our assistance and help to men and vessels that are in distress in our search and rescue region. So it's very important that you understand these conditions and the wordings and terminology, especially as military officers, the terminology matters. So generally you will see in the continental margin, media reporting that it is extended continental, extended EZ. These are wrong terms. So ensure that you use the correct terms. And UNCLOS, United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, is available in the internet on PDF format. So download it if you are interested and go through it. You don't have to by heart it, but go through it. Because we are an island nation, and as an island nation, it's very important that we understand what is there in the UNCLOS. So this is a nautical chart, and producing this nautical chart is the responsibility of a hydrographer. This is my job. So what is important is when you made this nautical chart, you measure the seabed, what type of seabed is there, and what is the depth of the water, and the features. Undersea currents, subsurface current, surface currents, what is there. So all these things are being observed and analyzed. So this is the nautical chart that point out from Trincomalee over here. So Point Calimere is over here. This is the Pork Bay. Let's understand this terminology, because when I say Pork Bay, I use the term Pork Bay that is in the agreement. So this is the Pork Bay, and this is the Pork Strait. So as you can see, there's a light blue color shadow line. This is the water depth below 10 meters. So the depth of the water is less than 10 meters. Over here it is more than 10 meters. So you can see on the Pork Bay, the deeper waters are within us. Now over here you may not be able to see it very clearly, but here is the International Maritime Boundary Line, IMBL. So why it is important that we need to know IMBL, International Maritime Boundary Line. This was negotiated, and the negotiation started in 1972 and culminating in 1974, and IMBL was settled through 4 agreements between India and Sri Lanka and with Maldives. Now, what is unique about this negotiation process is that there was no UNCLOS at that time. UNCLOS came into being in 1982. So much more before the UNCLOS came into the world, Sri Lanka and India went through a bilateral process and negotiated IMBL the boundary line and settled all the maritime boundary line in the southern part of this area. Now, India managed their boundary lines with Pakistan, and Pakistan is still pending, but Bangladesh very recently, about 3 years back. So you can see for India, the maritime boundary lines are not yet settled on the Pakistan side, and the maritime boundary line on the Bay of Bengal with Bangladesh is settled very recently, but it's way back in 1970s, everything was settled. It's very important that you, military officers, understand it and the membership understand the history behind this IMBL, because Kachativ is here. Now, in the Indian media, you always see, when the Indian media reports Kachativ, they say Kachativ was ceded to Sri Lanka. Now, the dictionary meaning of ceded means something I own, but I given to the third party willingly. They continuously use this ceded word. But remember, Kachativ was never ceded. So how do you know those things? This is the book. This book is available on the Tisara publications, and that is why it was made a compulsory reading for the Navy officers. So I suggest that you have a copy of this book, written by Mr. W.T. Jayasinghe, former Secretary of Defense and Foreign Affairs during Sirimao Bandaranaike's time. Now, he was a main negotiator of this whole process. So in this book, he vividly pointed out how the whole process took place and to what extent the Sri Lankan delegation went in to find out the history behind Kachativ and how the bargaining or the discussions took place. It's very important that you understand this part of the history, because it is going to be a matter that we need to manage years ahead. We have lived with India for last 2,500 years, and we will be living with India for next 2,500 years. And as young generation, you will need to know the history. If you don't know the history, you will be at a disadvantage at forums. So these are the 4 agreements in 1974, 1976, as you can see. So the first, it was on the historic waters on the Pork Bay and the Pork Strait. Then it was extended to Gulf of Mannar and Bay of Bengal. So when I say Gulf of Mannar, Bay of Bengal, I hope you will be able to visualize what I am talking about on the ground. And the third agreement was on the Tri-Point, where the 3 EZ, India, Sri Lanka and Maldives, meet together. And then the final supplementary agreement between Sri Lanka and India was to extend these things and connect it. So through series of 4 agreements, IMBL was done, and it was done. There's no way that this agreement can be revoked. So no matter how Tamil Nadu state government and the Tamil Nadu media, even Indian media comes up with opinions, the agreement, international agreement, cannot be reversed. So let's understand the history behind it. So where do you want, if you want to read these things, where do you get details? This is available in the Coast Guard website. So you have Maritime Law Package. So when you click the Maritime Law Package, you have all this agreement and the Piracy Act, Maritime Zone, even the UNCLOS, everything is here at the touch of a button. So make use of these sites. Make use of this information. Go through at one point of your time in your career to make it a point to go through these things. You should know that. It is a must that you are aware of what is there in these agreements. It's very important. And if the time permit, buy this book. Then after IMBL, what is important is UNCLOS, United Nations Convention on Law of the Sea. This was finalized in 1982. And Sri Lanka played a major role in finalizing UNCLOS. It is because of this person, Hamilton Shirley Amarasinghe. he was the chairman of the third UNCLOS committee, and he steered the complete process and got all the nations to agree on this document. So that is why UNCLOS became a very unique document when it was signed in 1982, and Sri Lanka signed it on 1982 as at the beginning, at the founder signatory, and we ratified UNCLOS to our laws in 1994. And this Hamilton Shirley Amarasinghe is a key person who steered the complete process. And when you go to this UN web page, there's a dedicated memorial fellowship program for him. So how much of you know about this person? It's very important that we know this person, because these were the personalities that led the process. So UNCLOS, when it was ratified, it was drafted in 1980s, in the UN corridors, it was the Sri Lankan delegation that had the power. But somewhere along the line, we lost that power. So it's very important we follow these developments in our history, because they will be helping you sometimes into the future. Then thirdly, another similar kind of a convention is coming up called BBNJ, Biodiversity Beyond National Jurisdiction. It is yet to be ratified and by the member states, but at least 3 or 4 member states have already signed it. This BBNJ, or in normal terms we call it High Sea Treaty, it has come to safeguard the marine environment that are not coming under the national jurisdiction. So this is going to be a matter that we need to seriously look at. The reason is our fishery. Now this image is from our vessel monitoring system. Sri Lankan fishing vessels that go for high sea fishing, by law, they are required to have a vessel monitoring system installed. And this is how it is looked like on the screen. So you can see this is Sri Lankan EEZ, and all of these are indicated one Sri Lankan fishing vessel, a multi-day fishing vessel. And they are in the Arabian Sea. And you can see this is the Maldivian EEZ, and this is the Indian EEZ, and this is Diogo Garcia. This is British territory, British Indian Ocean territory, and this is Seychelles. So away from other EEZs, these Sri Lankan fishermen are legally permitted to fish. Now the danger is, biodiversity beyond national jurisdiction is aiming to preserve the marine environment of high seas. And these are high seas. So there are 3 things that are going to affect us. That is the marine genetic resources, environmental impact assessment, and the area-based management tools. So why these are important is they will have an effect on our livelihood, because our fishermen are going to get affected if these nations decided that this area to be protected. If they are protected area, no fishing will be permitted. If no fishing is permitted, our guys are going to lose their livelihood. And that's going to make us a social issue over here. It's going to be a political issue for here. And it's going to be a regional issue here. See, all these things are interconnected affairs. So that is why you need to have an understanding about these new developments that are taking place. Then let's talk about maritime security. So here is Indian EEZ, this is Sri Lankan EEZ, and this is Maldivian EEZ. This is the tri-point. So many security concerns are happening here. For example, poaching and IUU, shipping-related crimes, pollution, dumping, stevedores, salvage, illegal movement of people at sea, illegal fishing methods, critical infrastructure at sea, terrorism, robbery at sea, human smuggling, drugs and narcotics. So all these maritime security concerns are taking place. Let's have a couple of video clips. Drugs and narcotics. what is happening. And this video clip is about how the Iranian dows transfer heroin and ice to Sri Lanka. This was a time and space assessment, and all the captured Iranian dows are tracked, and they are taking their technical evidence from their GPS. It was all pointed out or put it up on scale. And let's see the video. I will run the video twice for you to understand. So all what you see is these Iranian dows, how they comes through the Arabian Sea, and how they crosses the Maldivian EZ, and where I stop is the place where we arrested them. So all of a sudden, the Arabian Sea become an area where we need to operate. So it become our national interest, the Navy, to operate in the Arabian Sea. All throughout this time, we thought that Arabian Sea is not our operational area, but the drug boats made that we need to be there. So this is a kind of a story behind it. This is how it originated on the Makaran coast in the Iranian. They get loaded with heroin and ice in the Pakistani waters, and always use the center of Arabian Sea, and either transfer items over here for Sri Lankan fishing vessels, because none of these boats are now coming over here. We started arresting them here, then they started transferring items over here. Then we started operating here, they stopped coming down, and they started transferring things here. So this new deployment in Red Sea, we don't need to go and fight Houthis, but it gives us an excuse to operate in this part and look after our national interest. So opportunities comes in this maritime arena that will be of beneficial to us. So for that, you need to understand what is happening. Then let's look at IUU fishing, poaching. And this is a video clip taken in 2020 by Air Force, how the Indian poaching takes place in the Pork Bay area. This is 15th July 2020, and all these are Indian fishing poaching boats. You can see the numbers. So the poaching in Pork Bay and the Pork Strait and the northern part of the Gulf of Mannar is a bilateral issue. It is a social issue. It is a security issue. But remember again, it is not that easy to manage. One thing is the involvement of the bilateral relations. Remember that India doesn't have a central law on fishery. It is all state law. So the state law on fishery in Kerala is different to state law on fishery on Tamil Nadu. And that is different to the state law of Andhra. But in Sri Lanka, there's a central law. And under our Fishery Act, bottom trawling is prohibited. But it is not prohibited in the Indian law. So the moment they cross the IMBL, we arrest, we put them on the legal proceeding, we confiscate the vessel and send the crew, repatriate them. But it's very important that you keep on accumulating these data, these evidences, because these evidence carry a huge weight when it comes to bilateral discussions. For example, in the joint working, between the two government, the central government of India and the Sri Lankan government, there's a committee formed up, joint working group on fishery. So on the joint working group of fishery, when you show these video clips, the Indian doesn't have anything to say. So if you want to dominate these discussions, it's very important that you have the evidence. It is very important that you have the recordings, and your recordings has to be very authenticated with date, time, location, and these things. So these need continuous gathering of information, intelligence, evidence, and this is how this game is played. Then let's have a look at pollution. Fortunately, this video clip is not from Sri Lanka. This is Bali. Indonesia. See the amount of polythene in the water. But I happened to see a video clip circulating in the WhatsApp media about how much of polythene is there in the Sri Lankan waters, on the seabed. So these are very detrimental issues. One thing for our tourism, and one thing for our health, and one thing for our environment. So would you like to swim in a sea of plastics? Definitely not. So if that is so, you need to take action. So these are the things that are happening around us. Then let's have a look at dynamite fishing. This is the video clip we took of Galle after a dynamite fishing. You can see the indiscriminate killing of the fish. This is on 2020. All the fish are dead. The whole school of fish is dead. And this happened at 11 o'clock in the morning, the broad daylight, just off Ginganga. So this is the effect. And this is happening in the east coast and in the southern coast. And these are very detrimental to the environment as well as to the safety of tourism. So people need to be aware of this. Now, after this video was taken, we knew the guy who did this act, who threw the dynamite, and we caught the guy. But when we produced him to the courts through the police, the regulation or the act says that he need to have the evidence, he need to have the dynamite in his possession. So after throwing the dynamite stick at sea, how are you going to have evidence with you? And these lawyers will argue, and he got bailed out. So what we did was, our divers got this absolutely good video. We went to his school. His two children were schooling. One was in elder daughter was in grade 7, and the younger boy was in grade 3 or grade 4. We took this video to the school. In the pretext of environment, we show this to the children. And within those children were the two kids of this main accused. And he did the trick. Both children went back home and declared war on father. And that is what we need to do. I mean, there will be many ways that you can craft or design your approach to prevent this kind of activities. So these are happening in our waters. So this is about maritime security. Then let me touch upon the marine science research. Now, why I made this very illustrative video is to showcase all these activities are part of marine science research. For example, sea surface temperature, sea surface currents, they matters. Surface current dictates how the nutrients are being flowed. Sea surface temperature matters because that will increase the moisture at air. So when the moisture in the air is high, there will be clouds. And that cloud will be bringing us rain. In our island, the whole lifestyle is depending on two monsoons, southwest monsoon and the northeast monsoon. And these monsoons bring the clouds, bring the moisture. And the amount of moisture decide how much of rainfall we are going to have. So that is why sea surface temperature matters to us. And the undersea currents matters, and depth salinity temperature matters. Living and non-living resources matters. Sediments on the sea bottom matters. The seabed and the bedrock matters. Why? That is where the oil and the gas is trapped. So undersea features matters. That is where the minerals lies. So all these things part of the marine science research. And we as islanders, we cannot survive without marine science research. So there are a number of ways that we can measure these things. All the new submarines are fitted today with real-time depth salinity temperature. measurement is sensors. So if you want to send submarine, you don't need past data because there's a mechanism to get the real-time data. And if you want this data, there are vast number of these data available in the net. I will show you these things. So this, on the pretext of marine science research, how geopolitics and geostrategic moves poses us is very detrimental to our future generations. So let's understand these things very well. Marine science research is a must. We need to have it. Without that, we will never know, because the ocean dictates the weather conditions, climate conditions, and our lifestyle, everything on land. Take a look at the temperature, the heat wave that is going around these days. It is because of El Nino and El Nino effect. Now, where is this El Nino and El Nino happening? It is happening in the Pacific. So it doesn't need to be China. Just because something happening in the Pacific, El Nino is happening in there, and we have a repercussion in the Indian Ocean, just like geostrategic moves. And as a result of that, the waters around us are warm, temperature has risen, and we all felt the heat on the ground. So this is marine science research. So from that, let me take you to ports and harbors. So I will quickly go through this one. This is a presentation and interaction I made with the Russian think tank some time back. So I was talking about the maritime dependent economies and how the politics are related. So I pointed out, with this much of population, the world number 1 population, world number 8 population, Bangladesh, world number 5 population, Pakistan, and the islanders where we ranked. With this much of population around this region, there's so much of mouth to feed. And all this feed comes from the sea, come from the ships, come through the port and harbors. So that is why ports and harbors become strategic assets. So these 3 new initiatives, that is Pivot to Asia in 2005, redefined to Indo-Pacific in 2011, and China's BRI in 2013, and India's Sagar in 2015, they have triggered many issues in this region. So that has triggered countries to spend on new harbors, new ports. So what are we having? We are having a new harbor coming up in Bangladesh, Matabare Deepwater Harbor. I will go through these things on the Google Earth, because all these are available for us to see at a touch of a button. And India is going to spend money on a megaport at Galatia Bay. And we have Trincomalee, a deepwater harbor, Colombo South, deepwater harbor, Hambantota, a deepwater harbor, then Port Penang in Malaysia, and Port of Singapore, and all the others, Oman, Salalah, another deepwater harbor. Now these are going to dictate our economies. And this is the shipping density. And all these ships will be seeking refuge in the ports and harbors. And look at the top investment regions. So South Asia, 122 billion US dollars. No region. If you compare with the others, Latin America, it is 134 billion. Sub-Saharan Africa, it is 2,227 billion. So this is how the economics are looking at the economic investment opportunities in the regions because of these port and harbors. And look at this assessment. This is sometimes back, about 8 years back, this economynext.com came up with this argument. And Sri Lanka, through Sri Lanka, this BRI is looking for a radiation region and a population of 1.6 billion and radiation GDP of 2.3 trillion US dollars. 2.3 trillion US dollars. That's huge. Nowhere in any of these boxes you have that kind of a radiation GDB. See the amount of analysis that are going through these ports and harbors. It is not just mere port and harbors, it is the economic development of the region. And with that, this analyst try to look at economic development as military development. So all these things are available in the open sources. So when you go through this, you will be able to assess how the countries are looking at each other. Now, because of the Red Sea conflict, now this has boosted up. This India, UAE, this corridor is picking up. They have accelerated the constructions because they see opportunity, a market opportunity to flourish. And what do you want to do? With this much of population around us, and with 2 deep water harbors in the region, and Colombo being the only top 25 port in the list, what do you want to do? It's only our imagination that prevents us from doing it. So it's a matter of engaging. So the opportunities and cooperation in Indian Ocean, my argument was that it is shipping and port development and management, marine science research, hydrographic surveys, maritime safety and security. So there's enough of scope of cooperation and collaborating arrangements are there. So let's visit the Google Earth. Let's look at with time and space. Look like I need to change the batteries. Right. This is Galatia Bay, the new harbor that India is going to make. Let's zoom into this location. This is Galatia Bay, and no construction has yet started. But the expression of interest was launched 6 months back. 3 or 4 Indian companies has bid for that, and they are expecting to commence by end of this year. In another 5 years' time, there will be a mega port in this Galatia Bay. Look at where it is. Right on the sea lane of communication. This is Singapore. The moment this harbor comes in another 5 years' time, his main strategic competitor will be Singapore. So all the transshipment originating on the east coast and in Bangladesh will go here. And from here, it will go to the main liners. It will not come to the Colombo. So does it mean Colombo and Hambantota is killed? No, because this is going to happen in next 5 years' time. So we have ample time to get engaged by not constructing new harbors, but going into a collaborative arrangements, commercial arrangements, where it will be lucrative to come to Colombo than to go to Galatia Bay. The same thing is happening. Now this is Matabari, deep water port that is being constructed in Bangladesh with a Japanese assistant. This is the harbor. So you can see the water area is very less, but they have allocated a huge space for container stuffing, storing for that space. There's a problem, the tide. As you go north of equator, the tide dictates. And for Sri Lanka, tide is not a matter. Anywhere in this country, the variation between high tide and low tide is 1 meter, 3 feet. So any ship can go in and come out. But it is not the case as you go north of equator. Let's have a look at the Jawaharlal Nehru port terminal in Navi Mumbai. This is the port, a massive facility that was built by the Indian government about 30 years back, just as the Colombo harbor. But less traffic. Even though there's a production, there's hardly any traffic because once the ship goes, it has to wait till the next high tide to come out. So that prevents their efficiency. So the port efficiency matters. That is why the Americans are investing in Colombo port for port efficiency. So these are strategic moves. Then let's have a look at the Indians' theatre command in Karwar. And the beauty is that all these things are available. They are not confidential materials anymore. This is the Karwar harbor, and this is the aircraft carrier. Oh, it is not there. This is, the image was 2023. 2023. So, aircraft carrier is not in the harbor. This is the Karwar harbor made for the aircraft carriers. And for any reason, Indians cannot berth their aircraft carriers in this harbor. They will have to either come to Hambantota or to Colombo South. There's no other harbors that they can take the aircraft carriers. So, see, the point is the port and harbors. Now, this is the new harbor coming up in the Visanjim, in the south of, in the Kerala, south of Cochin. See how small this harbor is. These are not going to be a threat to us. Although they boast about deep water harbors and this, there's no threat to this to us for our harbors from these kind of ports. If we make our harbors more efficient, if we make our harbors more accessible, the business will always be with us. So this is about the ports and harbors on this side. And this is Gwadar Harbor, Pakistan, right on the border with Iran. This is the Gwadar Harbor. Empty. Obviously, this is catering only for the Pakistani demand. And Indian government is helping Iran to build up the harbor in Chaudhara. This is Chaudhara Bay. Let's have a look at it. No construction as it 2023. This is it. Empty space. Let's have a look at Salalah, Oman. This is Salalah Harbor. See the amount of activities, amount of containers on the yard, the ships in the base. So this is how you keep track of the activities in these major harbors. So with this, let me take you to Bab el Mandab. This is Bab el Mandab Strait. So let's measure this distance. Let me put it on kilometers. So this is the narrowest part, 16.4 kilometers. All the ships has to go through this 16-kilometer gap. So no wonder it is a choke point. And this is where the Houthis are striking at their will. Many things are happening on this side also. This is Puntland, Somalia. This is Somaliland region. Over here there's a place called Berbera Harbor. And this is the Berbera Harbor. And the Ethiopian government signed a deal with Somaliland government for this harbor because the Ethiopia all of a sudden became a landlocked country. And they have a potential because it is right on the main sea lane of communication. So the whole East African market is going to be captured by this. So the point is that you don't need satellites. Well, it's good that you have satellites, but to have a basic knowledge and understanding what's happening, the tool is within us. Let's have a look at Hambantota. The image was taken in 2024, January 22nd. So this is the update by January 22, 2024. So there will be another arm coming up on this side. There will be another arm going up on this side as per the master plan. So almost 2/3 of the harbor is finished. Another 2/4 harbor is finished. Another 2/4 has to be done. And it was dug-in harbor. Dug-in for 18 meters. It is not a harbor constructed at sea. It is a harbor constructed on land. So that is why it is called a dug-in harbor. So there's another story about this one. So for that, please follow my newsletters in the LinkedIn. I have given the little bit of history of how these harbors came into being. Let's have a look at the Colombo South harbor. You can see the West Terminal coming up very fast. Because this is thriving. CICT is thriving. And this is lagging behind. The Eastern Terminal, managed by the Ports Authority. So the West Terminal will attract all the Indian shipments. So this is how the game is played. And if you want to play the game right, you be an active partner in the game. So with that, let me come back to my presentation. So this is how the container ships has evolved from 1956 up to now. Ships are becoming bigger, so the unit cost is coming down. So that is why economically it is very available and affordable. Then the seabed mining. My next subject is seabed mining. And this is where it is happening. And already the seabed is been allocated for various countries by International Seabed Authority. And how to access it? This is the website. International Seabed Authority. They maintain a website, and in that website, there's a separate page for this data. And all are made available in open sources to which countries and in which portions are available. Till the picture come, I will go through it. So these ridges, undersea ridges, matters. Now we have a 90 East Ridge, Mid-Indian Ocean Ridge. This is where the minerals are accumulated. Seabed resources are accumulated. But these are deep waters. 4 kilometers of water, then the seabed. But the technology is developing very fast to extract the minerals from this seabed. So these are happening right now. Let's see whether the page is being loaded. Okay, let's come to later. Then the undersea cables. So let me run this video clip.
Earth's submarine
There are
fiber
many
optic cable network.
these kind of video clips available in the YouTube. So please go through it. And all our economies are connected by these undersea cables. So if the cables are disrupted, all our economic activities, the banking activities, financial activities comes into a standstill. And there will be social issues. Imagine your sons and daughters going to spend their time without the internet, YouTube. There will be a social issues, social calamities because of these cables. Now it is very important that we maintain it. So the UN ODC is on a project to introduce the state law to the regional countries. So it was introduced in Sri Lanka in 2019. I was the chief hydrographer and I did a major role in that. So based on that, the moment I retired, they took me as a consultant. So I am advising the government of Bangladesh and Maldives right now. Bangladesh is almost done. They are going to promulgate by about June this year their law on the submarine cables. So people are coming up with these laws and regulations to secure the state interest. But mind you, these cables are commercial arrangements. And these commercial agreements have their integrated contingencies, insurances. So that is why our Sri Lanka Telecom is earning a lot of money, because the capacity we have is more than enough for our national requirement. So we lease it, that exists. By leasing, we earn a lot of money. So when the Sri Lanka Telecom, when they are the sole authority for CME-V, Southeast Asia, Middle East and Western Europe, there are 6 cables running, another 3 are coming up. And this cable, the capacity is more than enough for us. But there's a big business behind it. So this is how the world is communicated and world is managed. Setu Samudram is another thing. It will come time to time. But this is a subject that will take more time to explain. So I will not go through the complete presentation. I will showcase a couple of slides only. Now the government doesn't build canals just for the fun of it. There will be always a strategic reason behind it. So this is how this is being proposed. The dotted line is the IMBL. So all is within the Indian side. So legally it is permitted. And there are 2 dredging sites involved, legally permitted. And on the Gulf of Mannar, this is how it's going to happen. And the beauty is, even after independence, you will see every decade or so, some proposals has been floated. So it has never gone out of the agenda of the Indian strategic planning. So it will come time to time. So be wise to manage it. You will be the one who manage it, definitely not me. So if you know the history, you will know how to manage it. So where you can get all this data? So let's have a look at some online facilities available to you. Let me take you to the first one, that is msdi.navy.lk, Marine Spatial Data Infrastructure. This is available on the net. At a touch of a button, you can go through it. This is maintained by the Navy Hydrography, and it have these facilities. So if you click the Information Fusion Center Colombo, it will link you instantly with the IFC Colombo, the home page. So what is happening around us and in the ocean is listed out here. And there will be reports. There will be reports monthly. So when you click these reports in a graphical forms, all the statistics, data is given to you. And these are not secrets. These are statistics required by the officials, academics, researchers, and other governments. It is through this they assess our capacity, our capability to manage our oceans. So let's be very wise on that. And at the same time, let me take you to the wind farms. So this indicates where all our wind farms are located. Why these locations? Because these are the only locations where year-round you get the consistent wind that is force enough to propel these blades. Then let me take you to these Argo buoys. Now, Argo is a worldwide collaborative arrangements, and they have free-floating buoys that collects data of the ocean to a depth of 2 kilometers. So these are the real time. So I select this buoy. So it is, let's have a look at the trajectory. So this buoy has been floating in our EZ like this. Now it is over here. So what is there in this buoy? So let's go to the profile data. And this buoy is belong to China. As per the international agreement, countries are promised that they will put this much of buoys in the world oceans for everybody to access. And this is how the temperature, salinity, and it's been detected by these buoys. So you can see already this data is available to you in open source. There's nothing secret here. So when I look at this salinity, I can see somewhere around depth of 200 meters down, I'm talking about this one. This is 200 meter water depth. The salinity remains almost constant. That means it will be a good environment for submarine operations. But no submarine operate in depths more than 500 meters, as what we know. So this is how this marine science research, the data is being used in the military applications also. And these are available to you. So let me take you to another buoy. Let's search around. Okay, there's a buoy over here. Let's click it. Let's go to a float trajectory. So it has covered all our eastern part. So all these data also very relevant to us. Let's have a look at those data. Profile data. And this is the temperature. And this is the salinity. So you can see the changes in salinity. On the previous one, the salinity was little high. But in this one, salinity was little low. Now these indicators help us to interpolate how we should be operating our submarines, or we should be operating our underwater sensors, how we should be making use of that data for our scientific predictions. So this is how the game is played, and these things are there already. There's nothing to be alarmed of. So let's check this one. Now this is let's have a float trajectory. So it has almost covered the Andaman Seas. So it will be important for Indians. Let's have a look at the profile data. Once again, it's a Chinese buoy. So if the Indians are telling Chinese ships are coming here to collect data, these are false assumptions. Because these buoys are collected data already in the Indian territory. Our problem is, when we make decisions, our political leaders doesn't look at this detail. They don't know about this. There's a huge gap of maritime affinity at the top level. As a result of that, our decisions become obsolete and we will be the losers. So that is about the ARFRO buoys. Then let's say crowdsourced bathymetry. What is meant by crowdsourced bathymetry is anyone can record these things and share. Now this is how the Sri Lanka Navy Hydrography had shared their data. Now this is Katchativu Island. Let me take you through this 3D video. This is how the Katchativu Island looked like after the survey. Let's take time for this because... So this is how it is. This is the island and this is the depth of water. These are dead coral beds. On top of the dead coral beds, the sand has accumulated over millions of years and it has formed up islets. And this is how it looked like. So the point I want to make here is how much of data is available for us. It is a big data issue. We don't know where to look for. Then let's go to coastal forecast system. Now this is a relatively new forecast system that has been instrumented by Professor Charita Pattiarachi, a famous Sri Lankan born oceanographer now in the Western Australia University. And he got a grant from Australian government to establish this. So let's have a look at air temperature. This is the air temperature. So this is today, 29th of February at 1700 hours. Let's have a look at 2300 hours today. What will be the temperature? So you can see by evening it will cool down and it's going to be a very pleasant 26, 24 temperature in Colombo area. So these are available, these predictions, these simulations based on data is available to us. Let's have a look at how it's going to be 3rd of March. 3rd of March, 8 o'clock. So you can see the temperature is gradually coming down, and we are going to have the normal conditions again. Earlier, it was very red. That is about 28 to 30, 32. And on certain part, let me take you back, 29th of February, 1700 hours. Can you see on the Indian side, this is Western Ghats Mountains. So over here, it is more than 40 degrees. Then let's have a look at the air quality. Once again, these are available on the net. This is Australian university project. Based on data, they simulate what will be the wind patterns, sea conditions, and the air quality. So this is the reason we get year-round wind consistency in this part. That is why all our wind farms has to be on this side. It is because of the channel effect or the Venturian effect, because of the central highlands of Sri Lanka and the Western Ghats mountain of the South India. Because of these two geographical features, the wind is being channeled through this corridor. And because of the Coriolis effect, that is the earth rotation. So when the southern hemisphere, the wind comes, as it crosses the equator, it changes direction. And this is being taught in the Navy Naval Academy during your cadet time. So the Coriolis effect, these things were very confusing and very mismatching. It is been named after the scientist who came up with this theory. And because of that, these wind patterns take very unique shape. So over here you can see we get year-round high winds during northeast monsoon. Now it is northeast monsoon. So during southwest monsoon also, we have the same effect on the river side. Then again, the same thing happening in the Hambantota area. So Hambantota is another area where we have the potential for wind farms. So let's have a look at the air quality, particulates. This is how the air pollution takes place. So the Bangladesh and the West Bengal air pollution, it's been carried by these winds, and it will be coming down. It is not that strong, so it will be filtered down over the Arabian Sea, Bay of Bengal, so we will not have much effect. But these things are available at a touch of a button you to analyze. You don't need to wait for the government prediction. Then the tsunami alerts. Let's click on this one. This is a National Data Buoy Center of NOAA. That's the American national agency that are interested in monitoring the ocean and the air. So they have this website that is maintained 24/7 real time. Let's wait for the page to come. It's very important because next time when you have these tsunami stories, you don't need to wait for anything. Just go to this site, click these two buoys, these two yellow ones. Because if there are any tsunamis coming on our way, these two must have a record. If it is not there, don't worry. It is not coming to us. So let me click it. And this is the graph. So over here, it's very smooth. It's on Greenwich time. So you add 5 hours and 30 minutes. It will be our local time. If there's a disturbance here, you just convert into local time, and there will be always 2 hours plus for us to react. Before the wave hit, there will be some time. So these are available for us to make our own decision. So this is supportive of our informed decision making. So, ladies and gentlemen, so much of websites, web-based platforms, many things are available for us. It is our ignorance. It is our maritime non-connectivity that made us into present level. So with that, I thank you.